This year, the planet-eating dark god, Unicron, returned to cinema screens in Rise of the Beasts. So this week, I'm wrapping up Obscure Characters Month with a look at a bot from the planet that was Unicron's first victim when he made his debut all the way back in 1986. It's no mockery of justice, it's the basics on KRANIX. KRANIX was an original character created by writer Ron Friedman and designed by artist Floro Dery for 1986's The Transformers the Movie. He was one of a race of robots from the planet Lithone, the world that, in the film's famous opening sequence, was devoured by Unicron. KRANIX and his friend Arblus were the only ones to survive Lithone's destruction by fleeing in escape ships. They wound up on the planet Quintessa and were taken prisoner by the Quintessons, who put Arblus to trial and executed him by throwing him to their voracious servants, the Sharkticons. KRANIX barely had time to tell his fellow prisoners, the Autobots Hot Rod and Cup, about the threat of Unicron before he was dragged away for his own trial, and like his friend, was torn to pieces by the Sharkticons. Though a very minor character, KRANIX and the role he played in the film's story went through several significant revisions as the movie was developed. As seen in the first draft of the script from 1984, Friedman initially conceived KRANIX as a robot made of rock. Accordingly, he was originally named GRANIX, after granite, a kind of rock, while his world Lithone took its name from lithos, the ancient Greek word for stone. The destruction of Lithone wasn't part of this draft. Here, GRANIX appeared only during the Quintessa scene. He identified himself as the rector of his world, who had come to Quintessa on an expedition, and he perished taking on the Sharkticons in a gladiatorial arena. It was when story editor Flint Dilley set about rewriting the film that GRANIX's role expanded, and the prologue featuring Lithone's destruction was added. During these rewrites, the idea of the Lithones being rock robots was abandoned, and they were reimagined as fully mechanical beings. Thus, GRANIX's name was changed to KRANIX, and while no version of the script's ever been found to definitively prove it, it seems almost certain that Arblus began life as Marblus before his name was changed the same way. After the rock robot idea was scrapped, Dilley reinvented the Lithones as robots who could transform into spaceships. In this version of the script, Arblus died during Unicron's consumption of Lithone, while KRANIX used his spacefaring alternate mode to escape the planet. Now, the Lithone's ability to transform also wound up being dropped for the finished film, but these spaceship forms weren't completely forgotten. They were included in Marvel's comic book adaptation of the movie, and in character profiles for the two Lithones published in Marvel's Transformers Universe Handbook, which also provided insight into their personalities not offered by the film. The profiles described Lithones as having an unusually high percentage of emotional circuits. For Arblus, this made him panicky and prone to jumping to the worst possible conclusions. But for KRANIX, who was characterized as a chivalrous friar warrior, it gave his personality an unprecedented depth and complexity, more like that of a human being than a robot. Though Lithone and its people were wiped out, the Lithone character designs created for the movie would be reused in various episodes of the Transformers cartoon to represent other unrelated alien races, including the Junkions and the Nebulons. KRANIX himself, meanwhile, has made a handful of reappearances in new Transformers stories in the 21st century. He typically features in media that takes direct inspiration from his role in the movie, almost always showing up in conjunction with Unicron or the Quintessons. Sometimes these are just adaptations of the film's events, but others have offered different takes on its story, like IDW Publishing's Deviations comic book, an alternate universe version of the film in which the Autobots rescued KRANIX from the Quintessons before his execution. One of the more unusual alternate stories was told in conjunction with KRANIX's first toy. When the Unicron toy from 2002's Transformers Armada was re-released in 2011, his Minicon partner Dead End, who transformed into a moon for his planet mode, was oddly recolored and renamed KRANIX. The toy itself offered no justification for this oddity, but the Transformers Collectors Club would later cook up a story explaining that it represented a version of KRANIX from a universe in which Unicron had not destroyed Lithone, but instead had fused KRANIX and the planet into a single being and forced him to roam the galaxy as his slave, seeking other planets for Unicron to consume. The 2014 video game, Rise of the Dark Spark, took a fresh approach to KRANIX, depicting him not as a Lithone, but as a transformer from Cybertron. The game named him as one of the Patterners, an ancient group of Cybertronian scientists and philosophers, whose mind was briefly controlled by the depraved scientist Giaxus using the mystical power of the evil Dark Spark. The idea of KRANIX as an ancient Cybertronian and a contemporary of Giaxus would also be featured in the 2015 video game Devastation. Collectible text logs explained that in this continuity, KRANIX and Giaxus were both part of the crew of the spaceship Proudstar, which left Cybertron long ago to colonize uninhabited planets, including the world that would become Lithone. However, an encounter with Unicron infected the crew's minds with evil, warping their mission and driving them to colonize inhabited worlds. KRANIX was the only one to escape Unicron's evil infection, and he determined to stop the others by crashing the Proudstar on Earth. As the ship went down, KRANIX fled in an escape craft and returned to live on Lithone, thereby bringing this version of his story in line with the movie. Most recently, in 2020, a small figurine of KRANIX was released in the War for Cybertron trilogy toy line, in a special box set with Quintesson and Sharkticon toys, recreating his trial from the movie. Though small, it's the most accurate toy of this obscure character yet released. Though, given that in 2024, the Studio Series toy line is set to begin releasing figures based on concept art for characters and ideas that didn't make it to the screen, you do have to wonder if a true, full-size transforming KRANIX toy with his abandoned spaceship mode could be possible in the future. And those are the basics on KRANIX, our final entry in Obscure Characters Month 2023. If you've enjoyed or learned something from this look at lesser knowns and cult favourites, maybe leave a comment below or subscribe to check out more, and I'll see you in a few weeks' time for more history and lore from the world of the Transformers.